Welcome to Season 5 of Far Reach Voyages, where we share our love of sailing and adventure travel. It's Monday morning, the 23rd of May, 2022. It's about 10:20 in the morning. We made about 95 miles yesterday. Just very light wind in the morning, and then the wind picked up during the day, and then it died off again last night about midnight. The main was slatting around. I just dropped it. We sailed on about 2 knots, just the jib winged out. It's hard on the mainsail to just be banging up there when light air, when you go a bit of a swell, just drop it down. But the wind vane steered us straight and true all night, just that little bit of breeze, around 2 knots. The wind's up now, quite lovely. I'll call it 12 to 14. We're making anywhere between 6 and 7 knots, just kind of up and down. Single reef main, working jib pulled out, wing and wing. Heading due north. Gulf Stream entry point's about 75 miles away, and then another 190 miles to Beaufort. We'll ride in the Gulf Stream about 100 miles. We're supposed to have good weather, decent winds from here till Tuesday night, and then we're supposed to have squalls and thunderstorms, which will be interesting in the Gulf Stream. And then Wednesday we're supposed to have southwest breeze 15 to 20. Should be in Wednesday. Georgia is that way, about 250 miles. I've seen very few ships north of the Bahamas. I think I saw one. Great place to sit when you're running downwind like this. One of the essential skills of offshore sailing is when something doesn't sound or feel right, you investigate it as soon as possible. I heard some squealing and clicking in the cockpit. It didn't take long to track it down to the Harken bullet blocks used to connect the control lines on the Cape Horn wind vane to the quadrant on the rudder post. I went through my spares blocks and came up with a substitution plan if the Harken blocks ultimately failed. It turns out ball bearing blocks aren't a good choice for wind vane control lines. I had chosen them because I wanted to eliminate as much friction as possible. What happened instead is the control line force on the sheave and bearings is quite high, but the movement is very short, which causes the bearings and races to wear flat in a small area. A better choice for this application is to use a block without ball bearings. Subsequently, I've replaced all the control line blocks with a newly designed Harken element block, which has a single low-friction journal bearing. We're about 42 miles from the Gulf Stream entry point, but we're already, I think, in the inside, the east wall of the Gulf Stream. The water has changed, it's different. There's a kind of an undercurrent, you can feel it. And it would be coming at a right angle to us right now. We're going a little bit west of north, and it's running southwest to northeast. And once we get deeper into the stream, we'll turn to the northeast and we'll take full advantage of the stream for about 120 miles. And then we'll jump out on the west side and proceed on another 100 miles or something to Beaufort. Earlier today, the wind continued to veer to the southwest. That's the direction it's coming from, so I dropped the whisker pole and jibed the boat. Now we're in a reach, which is good. This is a little more boat speed. Full main and working jib. Have the pole ready for tonight, so when we get in the stream and we turn to the northeast, the wind should be behind us, and we'll run downwind. Started to see more seabirds. I'm blocking the wind vane. Doesn't like that. Beautiful day. Cumulus clouds. Sunny. Not too hot. Not setting any speed records, but just beautiful sailing. Very pleasant, comfortable. Tuesday the 24th of May. It's about 1400. We are just about to the center axis of the Gulf Stream. Beautiful day. This seemed like a great opportunity to launch a message in a bottle. Who knows where it might travel? It would be pretty neat if someone finds it and I hear from them. Message in a bottle. In the Gulf Stream. 24 May. Good luck! If you look over the side, you think the boat speed's maybe 4 or 5 knots. I call it maybe 5, 4.5, 5. Well, we're hitting almost 8 knots on the GPS. So just a huge boost of current right now. About 55 miles to our exit point. About 65 miles from there to Beaufort. Beautiful cumulus clouds. the wind holds, and I don't really expect it to, but if it were to hold, we'd be out of the Gulf Stream before midnight. That would be awesome. But I suspect it'll go light and we'll drop down to 4 or 5 knots. We'll just have to see. You could sail on like this forever. Look how flat the Atlantic is. Very little swell. Got a single reef main and a working jib, and as flat as it is, I can probably pull at least another reef out, and I don't think it'll slat too much. I'll give it a try here in a little bit. When you reef it down, it doesn't slat as easily like that. That's hard on the battens, it's hard on the sail slides and the strong track. Hard on the seams of the sails. It's hard on your nerves when it's doing it a lot. I don't have any film of the last 30 hours of the voyage. I was too busy sailing and too tired to film. So I'll describe a couple of key events. Off of Wilmington, North Carolina, about 1800, I sailed past a gigantic container ship called the MV-1 Stork, moving at 2.8 knots. It was 1,200 feet long with a beam of 167 feet, and it was stacked to the sky with containers. About 23:30, I spotted a single white light that turned out to be what I estimated as a 50-foot power boat of some kind anchored in 138 feet of water more than 30 miles offshore. No AIS signal. I sailed past maybe 200 yards away. At 0100, a pod of dolphins joined me for a magical romp around the far reach. There were streaks of bioluminescence flashing all around the boat. It was fabulous. We were still on a port reach while I was napping when about 0230 a 150-degree wind shift occurred in about 30 seconds. Weirdly, there was almost no change in wind speed. It changed direction just like that. Because I was on a reach with the wind vane steering, the far reach changed directions just as fast. I had to reconfigure the boat for a beat to the northeast. I was up pretty much the whole night as we closed on Onslow Bay, the coast, Cape Lookout, and the port of Morehead City, North Carolina. Before sunrise on 25 May, the temperature had dropped quite a bit with the arrival of the cold front. I'd been in shorts and t-shirts for 6 months. I was cold. I rummaged for fleece and donned my foul weather overalls. The wind picked up to about 20 knots out of the north. The swells built into a nasty chop. I went to a double reef main and working jib. I sailed toward Cape Lookout thinking I could gain some protection from the lee of the land. It was a tough sail. I spotted Cape Lookout about 11:30 and then tacked back to the northwest. I foolishly attempted to motor sail for about 30 minutes. The far reach was pitching and spray was flying. We could only make about 3 knots directly into the wind and that nasty chop. She was not happy and neither was I. It was awful. I had to hand steer because I have no electric autopilot. I asked myself, what was I trying to do when I had first and foremost rebuilt the boat for sailing? I'd gotten a case of get-home-itis. So I shut the engine off, reset the vane, and with a double reef main and staysail once again, we got back to doing what we do best, sailing. In no time I had the far reach in the groove, and while it was not fast, the motion was much improved. The vane was steering. We were making about 5 knots. I was able to duck below and make lunch. After a few more tacks, we made it to the Beaufort Inlet. We were in the lee of the land. The wind backed off to about 10 knots. Our timing was good, and we caught the beginning of the ebb tide aligning the current with the wind. I dropped the sails and motored into Taylor Creek. I let go the anchor off the Beaufort waterfront at 18:35 on 25 May 2022. The next day, with Gale on board, we motored north up the intercoastal waterway in the Neuse River for about 20 miles to our marina. It was good to be home. Once again, the Far Reach had proved a great companion. She had gotten me home safely without difficulty or drama. Our voyage had taken 12 days and 8 hours. I'd sailed 1,397 nautical miles, spotted 14 ships, hove to one time, drifted on and off for about 3 days, motored for a total of 7 hours and 20 minutes, made a dozen tacks, jibed 7 times, made 31 sail changes, reefed 11 times, and used 2.5 gallons of fuel and 14 gallons of water. In August 2022, we hauled the Far Reach out of the water and began a series of new projects in anticipation of longer, more challenging voyages. In Season 6, we'll build a new tiller, fabricate and install new coamings and winch bases, reapply non-skid deck paint, install a jib furler, and make improvements to the Cape Horn wind vane, to name a few. If you enjoyed this episode of Far Reach Voyages, let us know in the comments. Also, consider liking and subscribing, as it tells us you would like to see more videos and it helps the channel grow. See you in the next episode.